Hey again, everybody. I'm JT Richardson, and this is Well, I'll Be Damned, Episode 2, which is What is an Atheist? It seems like a pretty stupid question to ask. If you've come here, you probably think you've got a pretty good understanding of what an atheist is. However, there are a lot of misconceptions about it, so I thought it would be beneficial if we actually just start from scratch and define what the hell we're talking about. So, let's take it to the elementary school level. Atheism. So the word theism basically just means belief in a god or gods, and the prefix a in front of it means not or without. So literally it just defines as without a belief in God or gods. And right off the bat, theists reading that automatically kind of have this huge wall that separates the two. Because it's very important for them that they believe in a God, and it's kind of hard to imagine someone that doesn't believe in a God, and there's a lot of negative connotations there. So, right off the bat, I want to kind of help break down that wall between both sides of the fence here, because in a way, if you think about it, we are all atheists, at least partly. That I say that because over recorded history, there have been millions and millions and millions of different gods that cultures have created. And we're all atheists to at least one God. So every human being that's capable of thinking about gods and religion is an atheist in some way. So there is a way that we can all relate on that level. So, for instance, we're not asking Odin for guidance in something in our life, or whenever we see lightning, we're not asking Thor to protect us from it and, explaining that lightning by him striking his hammer. Sure, there are some people that believe that, but for the vast majority of people, they can agree that that's not something that they do. There's several gods that people simply don't believe in. In fact, most modern people aren't necessarily polytheistic anymore. They're monotheistic. Some of the largest, most popular religions now are monotheistic. So that separation between atheists and theists isn't this big, thick, hard wall. We agree that we do not believe in millions upon millions of gods. It's simply one God. And that same process that theists use to say, that one can't be real, that one can't be real, don't believe in that one's bunk. We do the same thing just for one more God than you do. So we agree on millions of gods that they don't exist. It's just that one that's keeping that barrier in between us. So I thought that was a very important point to make right off the bat, talking about what an atheist is that we simply believe in one less God than the majority of theists do. Also, I want to explain that there's a lot of stereotypes and misconceptions. A lot of people think that atheists hate God. Now, obviously, that doesn't make any sense because you can't hate something if you don't believe that it even exists. Now, some people do still see a lot of hatred coming from atheists, and that is true. Atheists do have a tendency to be angry, and I'm going to do a whole episode on why atheists are angry and what to do about that. But it's not that we hate God. You can't hate something that doesn't exist. Nobody goes around hating Santa Claus, right? Because he's not real, so we don't hate him. Now, that being said, it is totally possible to have negative feelings about a fictional character, as crazy as that is. We've all watched movies where there's a villain and we do get those real emotions of anger and hatred, and we don't like this villain, even though we know in our mind that it's not real. Now, atheists, I can't speak for all of us, but I would say that in general, it's not so much that we hate God, because that's not really possible. It's more that we hate the idea of God. Just like whenever you're hating a fictional character, it's the idea of them, and it's the idea that it conjures within you. And that's what the negative feelings are coming from. Now, at the same time, some of that anger also comes from the fact that people believe in God. And that might be the hard part for a theist to understand. So I want to kind of try to explain that a little bit as well. So if we really are honest with ourselves and we stop for a minute and think, we all can probably find some situation where we are upset at the fact that people believe something that we don't believe. For some of us, it might be the flat earthers. We see people online talking about the earth being flat and spitting in the face of dozens of scientific proofs and obvious evidence and reality, and denying that we live on a globe and saying that the earth is flat. And that makes people angry because they're like, how could you possibly believe that? Sometimes it might be the anti-vaxxer community. People might see them trying to deny the obvious life-changing benefits that vaccines have brought onto society. And people say, how the hell can these people believe this? And it makes them angry. For biblical creationists, it could be people that are proponents of evolution and study evolution and point out how it's gotten us from where we started to where we are and how it impacts our daily lives is the effects of evolution over time. And they say, how the hell can somebody believe this? So no matter what your beliefs are, no matter what side of the fence you're on, if you really are honest with yourself and you think, I guarantee that you can find some example where people believe something and it makes you upset that they believe it because it's just so hard to understand how they could believe it. So that's why you might see some anger in atheists. It's not that they hate God. It's impossible to hate something that isn't real. They just hate the idea or the belief in God. And so that's another way of kind of separating these barriers from us. So, we all are atheists in some way. There are some gods or a God that we don't believe in. So that takes away a little bit of the division. And then as far as the frustration with that belief, we all can share that same frustration with some set of beliefs somewhere out there if we really explore it. So there's a unification there in that we all have a lack of belief in some God, and that we all are capable of being angry and upset at some sort of belief system that we ourselves view as completely crazy and don't understand how it can be believed. So that's what I want to start out with. It's just explaining that atheists simply believe in one less God than the majority of theists do. That we don't hate God. We don't necessarily hate believers. It's more about hating the idea of a God and hating the belief itself. And hate is even too strong a word because there's plenty of atheists out there like myself that are chill about it, and it's not something that they're constantly angry over. But it is very easy whenever you get into a conversation to have those emotions kind of flood the subject matter. Just like if some of us were going to talk to a flat earther or talk to an anti-vaxxer, talk to a biblical creationist, talk to an evolutionist, there's plenty of times where that difference in beliefs can bring out frustration. And so that's the kind of overall goal of this episode and this show in general, is to point out why some of these things happen and some of the similarities that we have, just to kind of break some of that division right off the bat before things get out of hand and the anger and the emotions take control of the situation. So, in summary, atheists in general just believe in one less God than most theists do, and the feelings that we have towards that belief in God can be related to in some way, shape, or form by everyone, because we've all been there where we get upset that someone believes something that we think is absurd. So I hope that that at least puts things into a little bit better perspective so that theists can understand where atheists are coming from and why they feel the way they do. I hope it put things in better perspective and that we do share a lot in our disbelief, because there's plenty of things that we, on all sides of this debate, do not believe in. And so we can at least find some common ground there, in that there's millions of gods that we don't believe in, and it's really just, for most of us, it's just one God that is the difference. And so we can say we agree 1,000,000 times on all these other gods, and it's just that one God that we're still not convinced about. And so there really isn't that ginormous difference between us if you really stop and think about it. And just like you can be upset that we don't have a belief, we can be upset that you do have a belief. And there's plenty of examples of beliefs out there that upset people. So I hope that kind of helps put things into a little bit better perspective. I hope that we can take that mindset into the future episodes so that there's not those hard walls in between us from the get-go as we talk about other issues. Again, I invite you to follow me on Facebook at Well I'll Be Damned, damned spelled DMND. I invite you to check out the book, give it a spin, let me know what you think. Even if you hate it, I'm happy to hear it. And I look forward to having a conversation with all of you about this stuff, and hope that this kind of helps lay the groundwork for much more civil discussion on these issues as we move forward. Thanks for joining me again for Well I'll Be Damned episode 2, What is an Atheist? And I look forward to seeing you guys for the next episode. Thank you.